My name is Jeff Wilson. By day, I invest in tech companies, and at night, I invest in sports cards. Join me on my journey to profit from the hobby we all love. Hello, sports card investors, and welcome to another episode. What a fun time of the year. We are about a week into the NBA season, and oh my gosh, the hobby is going crazy. I love this time of the year because everybody is so reactionary to everything that is happening in the first couple of games of the season. People don't even remember who Zion is anymore. They're now on Kobe White. Oh my God, Kobe White is going to win the MVP. This guy is on fire. He is insane. They're looking at previous draft classes and they're saying, like, who's this Dwayne Bacon guy? This guy, how did no one know that this guy was the best player out of the last 5 draft classes? Who's this Dwayne Bacon guy? I was hearing that after the first game that Charlotte played. Oh man, this is a fun time of total overreaction. But hey, the overreaction is part of the fun of it in the hobby. And I gotta tell you guys, I am part of the overreaction as well. I watched Trae Young's first 2 games and oh my gosh, I am a believer. I am watching Trae Young and literally I am doing the exact thing that you really should probably not be doing as a sports card investor. And that is, as I am sitting on my couch yesterday and I am watching Trae Young for the second game in a row go off for 39 points. He went off for 38 in his opener. Yesterday against the Magic, he's going off for 39 points. I'm watching this and I'm going, I got to buy more Trae Young cards. And I'm on eBay. If you have a high-end Trae Young card on eBay right now, you likely received an offer from me on your buy it now in the last 24 hours. That was me. I was the guy who was sitting there last night on eBay going, man, I got to get some more Trae Young cards. But it wasn't just me. It was, I'm sure, many people out there as well who are trying to, scoop up Trae Young cards because that guy has started this season hot. And that is why this is fun. I mean, it is definitely a bit overreaction. In the case of Trae Young, the Hawks, even though they started 2-0, and I love the Hawks and I love the youth and I love the momentum, the truth of the matter is they're not going to make any real serious noise this year. If they eke into the playoffs, it will be a miracle if they get an 8 seed in the playoffs. So, I'm not expecting a lot from the Hawks, but it is fun to watch Trae Young play. It is fun to watch them play, and it is fun to overreact a little bit and to be a fan and to buy some cards of a guy you like and a guy you are inspired by. And this time of the year is the time to do it. Just know, if you buy the hot guy after a couple of games, you're probably, number one, overpaying a little bit, and number two, you're probably setting yourself up for maybe not the best investment because chances are he may come back down to earth a little bit as the next few games goes on. But who knows? It's fun, and maybe these guys will stay hot and go on. Maybe this is the first inkling of their Hall of Fame careers. But it is fun. But today, I'm going to try to step back from the fandom a little bit, and I am going to give you my top 10 NBA investments for this season, my top 10 basketball card investments, but I am not going to do it using my own opinion. I am taking a data-driven approach based on the data, based on the analytics, based on the card prices of these guys. Whose cards do I think have the most opportunity to appreciate this season? We're going to get into that data in just a second. But first, I got to tell you about an awesome new article on my website, sportscardinvestor.com. I just posted it a few minutes ago. How to fund your collection on a limited budget. This is a topic that a number of you who are listening have asked me to do shows on. Hey, if we have a small budget, if we're just getting started, if I can only afford to do $50 or $100 a month or even less to get started, I've got a one-time $50 to put into this hobby. Who should I buy? What should I do? This article is about Chris Fine, and he talks about how he got started a few years ago on almost no money, very small amount of money. and how he was able to, in a very creative way, buy some old junk wax and turn that junk wax into profit, flip junk wax into profit, which then began to build up his cash flow and allowed him to start to buy better cards and build a bigger collection. So it's a great article. It's an article that addresses a lot of what people have been writing in and wanting to hear. So go to sportscardinvestor.com as soon as this show is over and check out that article by Chris Fine. I promise you will like it. But right now, it is time to talk about the 10 NBA investments, basketball card investments that I am making right now and that I think you should consider making as well. Before we get into the list, a general disclaimer. These are my predictions. These predictions, who knows what's going to happen? And I do feel, and I've said this obviously in previous episodes, that I feel like this is a really good time to be investing in sports cards right now. Interest in the hobby is going up and up. Prices of basketball cards as a whole, have risen significantly over the course of this year. Even if you're not good at picking out the individual players, if you have a variety of players from recent draft classes, you have seen prices go up and up over the course of this year. Will that continue? I personally think that's going to continue for the next few years. However, there's no guarantee in that. It is very dependent on things like the economy, that the basketball card hobby will continue to be good. So in today's episode, I'm giving you the guys who I am buying, I think maybe you should think about buying, but will they turn out to actually be great investments for you? I can't say for certain. This is full of risk. Anything could happen with the economy, and anything could happen with this list of guys. You know, I'm not perfect with my predictions, even though I actually have done pretty well so far. But you know, I'm just a torn ACL or two away from having some of these predictions go wrong. So I give you a little bit of a disclaimer, but that said, these are some guys who I'm pretty enthusiastic about, and I hope that these guys turn out to have great years this year. The data suggests to me that they will. And the data suggests to me that these guys are going to be good investments over the course of the season. So let me tell you a little bit more about how I came up with this top 10 list. So this is totally data driven. What I did, first of all, is I looked at players from the last 6 draft classes. I did not look at veterans beyond the last 6 years. And the reason why is, first of all, there's more consistent card prices, more consistent card brands the last 6 years, and better data on some of these guys. And they have the opportunity, the guys who are, in my opinion, within the last 6 years, are going to have more fluctuation in their prices than established veterans. So for those reasons, I really focused for this study on guys in the last 6 years. That's not to say that you can't do well by going out and buying some of the older veterans in the league. In fact, there's a couple of veterans I'm going to talk about in a minute who I'm going to give honorable mention to, even though they weren't part of my study. I think personally they're really good investments this year. I'm going to talk about them in a minute. But for the purposes of this study, I focused on guys from the last 6 draft classes. I then used wins above replacement data for this season. And I got this data from 538. You guys know I'm a fan of 538 statistics. 538 has wins above replacement WAR statistics on basketball players. And so I pulled all of the WAR data for all of the basketball players from the last 6 basketball draft classes, the projected WAR for those players this season, according to 538. Again, I only looked at this season. So this list that I'm going to give you is not necessarily judging guys on long-term value. It's judging guys based upon what type of movement I expect to happen between the beginning of the season and the end of this season with these guys. Once I got all of that wins over replacement data for these guys, I then factored in the likelihood that these players' teams are going to make the playoffs and potentially have a playoff run. I favored players who are on teams that have the potential for a playoff run. And the reason for that is clear. If you go back and look historically at card prices, guys who are on better teams who go on playoff runs tend to have a greater chance of their cards appreciating over the course of a season than guys who are doing really well but who are on teams that don't make the playoffs. So I favored guys who are on good teams. Then I compared the results against the current price of their Prism Silver rookie cards, graded PSA 10 rookie cards, in order to kind of figure out value. So I'm not looking at who the absolute best players are. this year. Rather, I'm looking at the players who I think offer the most value based upon what is projected to happen with their wins over replacement compared to what the current card prices are of their Prism Silver rookie cards graded. Then I factored in the estimated print run size of Prism Silver the year that they were rookies. Because as you know, as you go back in time, some of the earlier draft classes in my study had very limited Prism Silver runs, much less Prism Silvers were produced for those guys. Whereas like last year, there was a lot more Prism Silver produced. So a guy like Luka from last year's class has more Prism Silver produced than guys from the year before, like maybe Lonzo Ball. And then he's got more, Prism Silver produced than guys from previous years prior to that. So I did factor in scarcity when looking at this as well. I then eliminated players who didn't average at least 10 points per game because there were some, really strong defensive players who have a really good wins above replacement scores, but defensive players typically don't see much appreciation in their card prices. So they have to have some offensive game in order to be considered in my final results. And then I also eliminated players who had very few cards available, very little transaction volume overall on eBay, because obviously those players would just be a little bit harder to attain over the course of this season. So once I did all of those things, I came out with my data-driven top 10 list of the guys who I think have the most value for this season. Now, before I give you the list, I want to give you a couple of honorable mentions. Guys who did not make my list, but guys who I would still think about buying this season and guys who I am still buying this season. So one of my big strategies going into any season of any sport is look at the teams that are favored to win the championship. And I've talked about this in previous episodes, that if a player is on a team that wins the championship, more often than not, that player will see his card prices go up if he had any role in the championship at all. And we saw it with, players from the New England Patriots earlier this year. And we saw it, obviously, Kawhi is a crazy example of that happening last year with Toronto. But I'm always going to look at guys who are on teams that are favored to win the championship. And this year in the NBA, two guys I'm looking at in particular, I'm looking at Paul George. I'm looking at Paul George, obviously on the Clippers. Why Paul George? Because Paul George's cards, in my opinion, offer better value than Kawhi's cards, his teammate. Paul George's cards are not as they're not as valued. They're more attainable than Kawhi's cards. But I feel like if the Clippers go on to win a championship this year, that Paul George's cards are really going to appreciate from the fact that they won the championship this year. And again, his cards are a little more affordable to get, easier to get. So I think Paul George is a good investment. I also like James Harden a lot. James Harden, obviously, people know James Harden really well. He absolutely amazing shooter. And he's he's a veteran that a lot of people have gone after his cards, and his cards do have quite a bit of value and can be rather expensive. But he's obviously never gotten a championship before, right? And I feel like he's one of those guys that if he's able to break through this year and if they're able to get to the championship and win the championship, that he would more than likely be MVP of the finals if that happens. And he's probably then going to break through, and the image of him holding that trophy, in addition to, potentially being the scoring leader for the league and, having amazing statistics, I think would really give him a bump. And it's worth noting that 538, which again, the data source that I trust a lot for NBA projections, 538 actually predicts the Rockets are going to win the championship. 538 thinks the Rockets have the best shot of winning the championship. That's one of the reasons why I like James Harden's cards. So those are a couple honorable mentions that were not in my study because they were veterans. Those were guys who are more than 6 years in the league, so they were not in my study. But now let me go ahead and give you the guys who were in my study where I ran the wins over replacement data and the data came back. I compared it to card prices. I did all those things I talked about earlier, and the data came back and said, these are guys that offer a good value that I should be buying right now. Number 10, Donovan Mitchell, the Utah shooting guard. Donovan Mitchell, this is his third year. This could be a breakout year for him. He's obviously a pretty well-known, rookie already from 2 draft classes ago. But I really like Donovan Mitchell. Utah is a great team, better than last year even, and they have an outside chance of making the finals. People aren't talking about Utah that much, but they have a really strong nucleus of a team. They've got a shot at making the finals or at least having a really impressive playoff run. Donovan Mitchell is an excellent scorer. In fact, per 100 possessions, he was at 33.7 points per 100 possessions last year, which is really, really strong scoring. As you get over 30 points per 100 possessions, you're a very, very strong scorer. And then this year, his first game, he started the season with a 32-point night. So he started off hot, came right out of the gate hot this year. I like Utah as a team overall, and I like Donovan Mitchell, and he's in my number 10 spot for cards this year. My number 9 spot, John Collins. Now, John Collins is one of the very few guys on this list who is on a team that is unlikely to make the playoffs, or if they make the playoffs, they probably will not be much of a factor on the playoffs. John Collins is obviously on the Atlanta Hawks. He is a power forward, but John Collins is perhaps the most undervalued guy in the draft class from a couple of years ago. The big draft class where you had Donovan Mitchell and you had Jayson Tatum and you had Lonzo Ball. John Collins is a guy who is quite undervalued from that draft class. His cards, therefore, are cheaper than those other guys that I just mentioned, actually significantly cheaper. So I believe that his cards represent a really good value. I think John Collins has the opportunity to make a third-year leap. He also has great scoring per 100 offensive possessions, just like Donovan Mitchell. John Collins was at 30 points last year per 100 possessions. Trae Young is the guy who obviously makes all the noise on the Hawks and is getting all of the attention right now. But John Collins could end up maybe as the top scorer on the team. If not, if Trae continues to produce at how he's produced the first couple of games, then he may outscore John Collins. But John Collins will not be far behind in second place as a scorer on that team. So I think John Collins offers really good value based on where his card prices are right now. The number 8 guy this year who I'm investing in, Jayson Tatum. So you're seeing a pattern here. These first 3 guys are all from a couple of draft classes ago, 3 draft classes ago now, with the newest draft class, Zion's draft class, and then of course the year before, Luka's draft class. So these guys are from the 2017 draft class. Jayson Tatum, again, potential third-year leap. I like all 3 of these guys because a lot of times historically you see players make a big leap forward in their third year. And so that's where Donovan Mitchell is, that's where John Collins is, and that's where Jayson Tatum is. The Boston Celtics are Jayson Tatum's team this year. I mean, he is going to be super relied on. The Celtics should easily make the playoffs in the East. The East, as you know, is pretty soft. They should make the playoffs. They should have a pretty decent record. Jayson Tatum's card prices did go up some already this summer. I think there was a lot of anticipation of him being the guy on the Celtics and being able to help power them to hopefully a pretty good year this year. But they didn't increase as much as some of his peers did over the course of the summer. So I still think there's value to be had in Jayson Tatum, and that's why he is my number 8 pick for NBA cards this year. My number 7 card is a value play, a true value play, and it is Josh Richardson, the 76ers forward and shooting guard, small forward and shooting guard. Josh Richardson, he's a value play. His prices are really, really low. He's obviously not the star of that team. You've got guys like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid who are much, much bigger known names than Josh Richardson, but I think Josh Richardson is going to deliver. He's going to score a lot of points this year. One thing that I really like about Josh Richardson is since he came into the league in 2015, every single year his scoring has increased. He has become a better and better scorer every single year that he has been in the league. And the 76ers are, in my opinion, the favorite to make the finals in the East. I've got him above the Bucks. 538's got him above the Bucks. I think the 76ers are going to the finals this year. And I think Josh Richardson will be a big scorer on that team and one of the major reasons why they are able to make it to the finals. His cards are so low that I think Josh Richardson is a good value buy right now, and that's why he is in my number 8 spot this year for cards to, my number 7 spot for cards to invest in. And then my number 6 guy who I am buying right now, Jamal Murray, the point guard from Denver. Denver is expecting and needing this guy to make a leap this year. They are depending on Jamal Murray, and I like Jamal Murray to be able to come through and deliver. He is being looked at as the key points producer on Denver. And Denver is a team that a lot of people think will actually end up first in the West in the regular season. Maybe not the playoffs with the competition that's there, but in terms of regular season record, a lot of people think Denver is going to be the team that ends up with the best regular season record potentially in the entire NBA this year. Denver had a good showing in the playoffs last year. They actually surprised a lot of people, and I think they could have an even better showing in the playoffs this year. Jamal Murray's scoring went up every year for his first 3 years in the league. He is going to be tasked with continuing that trend this year. I think he will do it, and that's why I like Jamal Murray as my number 6 card to invest in this year. Are you guys ready for the top 5? You're going to have to wait till Wednesday. You're going to have to wait till my next episode to hear my top 5, but you will want to tune into my next episode because not only am I going to give you my top 5, but I'm going to give you one heck of a giveaway. I have a great giveaway that I'm going to be announcing next episode to celebrate my top 5 picks for this NBA season and to celebrate the start of the NBA season. So you're going to want to tune into my next episode on Wednesday. Obviously, if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the little bell icon so you can be notified when that next episode comes out. But I want to hear from you. What do you think of my picks so far? What do you think of Donovan Mitchell? What do you think of John Collins? What do you think of Jayson Tatum? What do you think of Josh Richardson? What do you think of Jamal Murray? And my honorable mention picks, Paul George, James Harden. What do you think of these guys? Tell me in the comments, or go on my Discord chat server or my Facebook group. You can get to either of them by going to sportscardinvestor.com. I would love to hear your feedback on this list, and tell me who you think should be in my top 5, because you're going to get to hear my top 5 in a couple of days. What are some names that you think should be in my top 5? Tell me, and then we'll see if they are in a couple of days. Guys, remember to go to my website. That new article by Chris Fine, How to Fund Your Collection on a Limited Budget. It's a great article. Go read it now, sportscardinvestor.com. Thanks, guys, and I will see you Wednesday for my next show.